Before viewing this video, please ensure that all participants have a copy of the Propane Cylinder Exchange Participants Manual. This manual will assist them in following the principles outlined throughout the video. Each module has an accompanying quiz in the Participants Manual. At the end of each module, stop the video and complete the quiz before watching the next section.
Liquefied petroleum gas, commonly known as LP gas or propane, is a very clean, efficient, safe, and widely used form of fuel. It is used to power many types of equipment, such as forklifts, tuggers, sweepers, barbecues, heaters, scissor lifts, and ice resurfacers. Like all other fuels, propane should be handled with care and caution. The intention of this video is to teach workers how to safely handle and exchange propane cylinders. Propane cylinder handling and storage is legislated under the National Standard of Canada Propane Installation Code and the Ontario Energy Act and its regulations. The Energy Act states that an employer is responsible for providing training and must make sure that all persons who handle propane are thoroughly instructed in proper procedures. Proper training will help to ensure that all safety precautions are followed when dealing with propane. Some of the topics discussed in this video will include characteristics of propane, material safety data sheets, cylinder storage and handling, cylinder components, cylinder removal, inspection and installation, and emergency procedures. Because propane is considered a hazardous material, it is covered under the Workplace Hazardous Material Information System, or WHMIS, as a controlled product. Your company must have a material safety data sheet available for workers to refer to. The material safety data sheet contains information about the safe handling of propane and also provides you with details about the properties and hazards of propane. Make sure that you know where the MSDS is in your workplace and that you understand the information contained in it. Propane is part of a varied family of chemical compounds called hydrocarbons. It is a compound of carbon and hydrogen. Other familiar hydrocarbons are methane, natural gas, asphalt, gasoline, and motor oil. Most of the propane produced today is recovered from natural gas liquids through a separation process called fractionation. The rest of propane comes from the refining of crude oil. In its natural state, propane is colorless, tasteless, and odorless. When it is first produced, propane has no smell, but mercaptan is added to it to aid in leak detection by using the sense of smell. The odor is similar to that of boiling cabbage or rotten eggs. Propane gas may occasionally lose the odor that has been added. This is known as odor fade. Water, rust, and air in the propane cylinder can weaken the gas odor, especially if valves are left open when the container is empty or if the container is new. Some people are not able to smell the odorant added to the propane or to recognize what it is. Allergies, colds, or sinus congestion, as well as the use of alcohol, drugs, or tobacco, can also make it difficult to smell a propane leak. That is why it is best to do leak testing on a regular basis. As well as being detected through the sense of smell, a propane leak can sometimes be heard as a hissing sound as gas escapes. You may also notice frost buildup around the area where the gas is escaping. A soapy water solution can be used to perform a bubble test, or you may use a leak detecting solution or leak detecting equipment. In freezing weather, you should use a commercial leak detecting solution since it contains antifreeze. If a propane leak is detected, the following steps should be taken. Turn off or remove all sources of ignition. Sources of ignition are things that can cause explosion or fire, such as a lit cigarette, radiant heating units, sparks, and open flame. Never use matches or a lighter to check for leaks. Do not use phones, electrical equipment, or light switches, as these may cause sparking. You must wear the appropriate personal protective equipment when turning off the cylinder. The personal protective equipment in this case would be items such as neoprene gloves and a face shield or goggles. Identify the source of the leak using an approved method or call a qualified service person. Shut off the source of the leak if it is safe to do so. If the leak stops, air out the area for a few minutes. If the leak continues, immediately notify your supervisor and tell all others in the area that there is a propane leak. Have everyone leave the area immediately. Walk, do not run. Running can cause static electricity, which is a source of ignition that can result in sparking and explosion. Call the fire department and your emergency team from a telephone outside of the area of the propane leak. Sometimes a leak will be small and can be handled by company employees. In these cases, and only if it is safe to do so, the container should be taken outside to an open place where gases cannot accumulate away from sources of ignition. Someone should remain in the area at a safe distance away from the cylinder to watch the container while the propane supplier is called. When working with propane, always keep the following in mind. Liquid propane must be handled with great care. Leaks are dangerous. Propane liquid expands to 270 times its own volume. The extreme freezing effect of vaporizing propane liquid can cause serious frostbite burns, which, if severe enough, can result in the need for amputation of the affected body part. Some of the hazards of working with propane include fire, explosion, asphyxiation, which can lead to death, severe frostbite. For these reasons, vapors must never be allowed to build up in a confined area where air cannot get in easily. Connecting and disconnecting of cylinders must be done in an open, well-ventilated area, preferably outside, where there are no ignition sources such as heating systems, sparks, and smoking within 10 feet or 3 meters. Propane liquid is usually, but not always, accompanied by a white cloud created by the freezing of water vapor in the air. Propane liquid is always accompanied by propane vapor. When propane is released into the air, it has an extreme chilling effect and will freeze anything it comes in contact with, including flesh. It will cause severe frostbite damage to skin. If this happens, keep the affected area warm. Place it in lukewarm water if possible, and get medical attention. In extreme cases, the effects of contact to skin have resulted in the need for amputation of the affected body parts. This is another reason why it is so important to wear personal protective equipment. To make storage and transportation easier, liquid propane gas is turned into a liquid by a process of compressing and/or cooling. This greatly reduces space requirements since approximately 270 gallons of vapor can be compressed into and contained as 1 gallon of liquid. This allows the liquid propane gas to remain in a liquid form until needed. Cylinders are only filled to a maximum 80% capacity so that there is room for the liquid to expand. Propane is lighter than water and heavier than air. As a liquid, it is half the weight of water and will float on water. As a gas, it is 1.5 times the weight of air and will tend to settle in low-lying areas. Propane expands and contracts with changes in temperature. When air temperature increases, the pressure in the propane cylinder rises. When air temperature decreases, the pressure in the propane cylinder drops. When liquid is heated, it will eventually start to boil. The liquid will then be converted to a vapor or gas. Water will boil at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. Propane liquid will boil at minus 44 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 42 degrees Celsius and is converted into a vapor or gas. When propane liquid escapes into the atmosphere, it vaporizes quickly and has a refrigerating quality. Propane, like gasoline, is a solvent and can dissolve many natural rubber compounds and some petroleum products. That's why you must use solvent-resistant neoprene safety gloves and approved hoses and connectors. Flammability limits, often referred to as the flammability range, is the lowest and highest concentration of a gas-air ratio mixture that will cause a flame. Not enough propane will mean no flame. Too much propane will be too rich to burn. It doesn't take a lot of propane mixed with air to burn. As a matter of fact, you only need between 2.4% to 9.5% of propane mixed with air to ignite a flame. Good air movement in areas used to change cylinders is the key to safety. Escaping propane is highly flammable and could lead to one or more of the following: fire, explosion, and asphyxiation. Never attempt to put out a propane fire unless the source of propane can be shut off safely. Unburned propane will build up and cause an explosion if it comes in contact with a source of ignition.
Please stop the video here and turn to page 11 of the participant's manual to complete the quiz for Module 1.
The requirements for the safe storage of propane cylinders are federally and provincially legislated under the National Standard of Canada Propane Installation Code and the Ontario Energy Act and its regulations. Propane containers must be stored outdoors in a special propane storage facility or in an approved cylinder storage room where there are no possible sources of ignition within a 10-foot or 3-meter radius. Storage facilities must be marked with proper signs. Propane cylinder storage cages must be located on firm, level ground, preferably on a solid concrete pad. They must be a safe approved distance away from doorways, confined spaces, or low-lying areas, as propane will flow into ditches and settle close to the ground. Ideally, storage areas should protect cylinders from rain, snow, ice, and sun. Do not store cylinders near stairs or building exits. Do not store cylinders near areas that would trap escaping propane vapors, such as pits or air intakes into ventilating or heating equipment. It is best to store cylinders in the vertical position, since the safety relief valve must always have direct contact with the vapor space of the container. When stacking cylinders, be careful not to damage the valves on the lower cylinder. Damaging the valves can cause a leak. Proper storing and mounting procedures must always be followed. The legislation will give you specific details for storage requirements of propane cylinders. Your propane supplier can also provide information on storage requirements. If you must store cylinders horizontally, ensure that the pressure relief valve is at the top of a cylinder in the 12 o'clock position. Ensure that all valves are in the closed position. Never store a cylinder upside down. Otherwise, if a leak were to occur, the relief valve would relieve liquid instead of vapor. Always return empty cylinders immediately to the designated storage area. A designated storage area is one that has been specially reserved and approved for the purpose of storing cylinders. Cylinders that are defective or have leaks must be taken out of service immediately and should be tagged. Tagging a cylinder means that a note is placed on the collar of the container with information on it as to why the container is defective. The note should also have the warning, "Do not use," written on it. The cylinders should be stored in an assigned, well-ventilated area outdoors, away from possible ignition sources or access by unknowing personnel. Keep in mind that empty containers may still contain liquid, so use caution. And do not store them upside down. Propane cylinders, when mounted on equipment, must not be allowed to get too hot. Do not leave the equipment near heating devices, near heat treating furnaces, in the direct path of radiant or forced air furnaces, in enclosed spaces subject to temperatures of more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius. Do not park the propane-powered equipment overnight or for long periods of time under the airflow of a heating unit, under an infrared heater, or any source of heat. A propane-fueled vehicle may, however, be parked or serviced indoors, provided that there are no leaks in the propane system and the container is not filled beyond its maximum permitted filling density. Do not attempt to use or modify a forklift cylinder for any other use, such as a barbecue grill. Forklift cylinders are for motor fuel use only. Using a forklift cylinder for any purpose other than what it was designed for can result in fire, explosion, and serious injury. Do not store a propane-fueled forklift in a trailer or any other enclosed area. Shut the cylinder off if the forklift must be parked for an extended period of time. The container shutoff valve must be closed except when propane is required for engine operation. A propane-fueled vehicle must not be parked within 10 feet or 3 meters of an open flame, any source of ignition, or an open pit or drain. Do not smoke, use matches or lighters around propane cylinder storage areas or while handling propane cylinders. Use approved propane safety gloves when handling propane cylinders. This will protect your hands from the possible effects of escaping liquid propane and also prevent injury to the hands, which might result from pinches or sharp edges. Propane cylinders are heavy and can weigh over 75 pounds. To avoid back injury, you should always use proper lifting techniques when lifting, carrying, or mounting cylinders. It is best to use a compressed gas cylinder cart or dolly to move containers around. Never drop, throw, roll, drag, or mishandle propane cylinders, as this can cause serious damage to the cylinder body or components. Never transport a propane cylinder on the forks, pallets, or seating area of a lift truck. Never hold a cylinder while driving. Move cylinders only in the upright position. If a cylinder is transported in a vehicle, the vehicle must be well ventilated with fresh air being circulated continuously. This will help to prevent a vapor buildup if there is a propane leak. Attach cylinders to the transporting vehicle by rack, chains, or strapping when they are being moved. And remember, never smoke when carrying, connecting, disconnecting, or working around propane.
Please stop the video here and turn to page 17 of the Participants Manual to complete the quiz for Module 2.
Cylinders come in different sizes, but the most common size used on lift trucks is a 33.5-pound liquid propane gas capacity cylinder. In Canada, propane cylinders are built and marked to the specifications of Transport Canada. Sometimes, markings on a container can't be seen very well because of extra labels that have been added. However, a propane cylinder should show all of the following markings: the tare weight, the water capacity, the serial number, the name of the manufacturer, the date manufactured, the test date, and the Wemyss label. Cylinders must be tested and restamped at least every 10 years, starting from the manufacturing date. This is very important. Outdated cylinders be used or filled. Let's look at the following components of a liquid propane cylinder. Liquid is withdrawn from the container through the liquid service valve. When used on removable cylinders, the opening of this valve is fitted with a special coupling. This coupling uses a spring-loaded check valve to allow quick connecting and disconnecting of the fuel line with a minimum release of liquid propane gas. The service valve should always remain closed when not in use. The combination of the female and male fittings, sometimes referred to as the quick connect, allows the connection and disconnection of the cylinder to the forklift engine without tools. The male connector contains a washer and an O-ring seal. The O-ring seal is located in the throat of the male connector. When it is connected to the female connector, the O-ring is the primary seal. This seal should be replaced if it has cuts or gouges. This is the liquid level gauge. This is usually a float gauge with an indicator dial. This device displays the amount of liquid in a container expressed as a percentage. However, this cannot be used to determine actual quantity, as it tends to be unreliable. The liquid level float gauge cannot be used for filling. This is the filler valve. There are two types of filler valves, either a double back pressure valve or a positive shutoff valve. However, not all propane cylinders have a filler valve. Those that don't are filled through the liquid service valve. The valve protection cap must always be in place except when filling. This is the fixed liquid level gauge. This gauge indicates when the container has been filled to 80% of its capacity. This provides enough vapor space for liquid expansion. The valve is open during the filling operation. A steady fog coming from the fixed liquid level gauge or spit valve means that the permissible full position has been reached and that the filler hose should be closed immediately. This valve must always be closed except when the cylinder is being filled. And here we have the safety relief valve. This is a spring-loaded valve that releases excessive pressure that can develop in the container due to unusual conditions such as heat. The valve will automatically open when the pressure exceeds 375 pounds per square inch. This will allow the safety relief valve to work properly and only release propane vapor, not liquid. When the container is installed horizontally, the valve should always remain in the vapor space, normally the 12 o'clock position. Make sure that a protective rain or dust cap is in place.
Please stop the video here and turn to page 21 of the participant's manual to complete the quiz for Module 3.
When it's time to change a cylinder, observe the following steps. Where possible, drive the equipment close to where the propane cylinders are stored. Propane cylinders must be changed where there is a good flow of fresh air. Wear a face shield or chemical splash goggles to protect your eyes and other protective equipment as required by your employer. Eliminate all sources of ignition, such as smoking, sparks, and welding. Park the truck properly with the handbrake on and close the liquid service valve. Allow the engine to run until it stops and then try to restart the motor. This will empty the fuel from the fuel lines. Turn off the ignition and remove the key. To protect your hands from the possible effects of escaping liquid propane, always wear gloves that will not absorb propane. Unfasten the quick connect coupler slowly. Inspect the valves for leaking. Do not use metal tools, as these can create sparks. There may be a brief escape of gas. If gas continues to escape after the couplings have been disconnected, recheck the valve to make sure it is closed. If it is still leaking, notify your supervisor and evacuate the area if necessary. Unlatch the cylinder mounting straps, also known as hold-down straps. Remove the empty cylinder. Store the empty cylinder properly in the assigned location. Before being used, a propane cylinder should be inspected thoroughly. Follow these procedures when checking a cylinder. Check the certification date and make sure that the liquid service valve is closed. Inspect the cylinder and move it away from the storage area. Look into the female quick connector at an angle to make sure that the washer and O-ring are in place and that they are not scarred, cut, or gouged. Keep your hands away from the service valve while doing this inspection. Make sure the ignition key is removed and continue to wear safety gloves and eye protection. Install the full cylinder on the equipment by mounting the cylinder with the pressure relief valve in the vapor space. Some types of equipment have a locating pin. On a horizontally mounted cylinder, the safety relief valve must be at the top in the 12 o'clock position. On a vertically mounted cylinder, point the safety relief valve away from the operator. Once properly aligned, strap the cylinder down to stop movement. On some cylinders, you may have to start threading the connecting coupler before you strap it down. Inspect the visible part of the fuel line for cuts, scrapes, kinks, and leaks. Tighten the coupler by hand. Do not over-tighten, as this can damage the seals. Do not use tools to tighten. Slowly open the liquid service valve 1/4 of a turn to allow the pressure to equalize between the cylinder and the fuel line. Then, open it all the way. Look, listen, and smell for leaks while opening. Use an approved leak detector solution to determine if any leaks are present. If the valve leaks, repeat the connecting procedures. If this fails, replace the cylinder and report this immediately to your supervisor. Any sign of the formation of bubbles means that you should take the cylinder out of service. Close and lock the propane storage cage. Ensure that the hose doesn't stick out and is positioned properly. Ensure that the cylinder is fastened securely. Now you may start the engine. If the engine starts but will not accelerate or loses power, the excess flow valve inside the service valve may have closed. Shut off the engine. Close the service valve. Wait until it has time to air out and then reopen the valve handle slowly, allowing the pressure inside the cylinder and the line to equalize. If you continue to have difficulties, contact your supervisor. Keep in mind that cylinders with defective valves or couplings should be taken out of service immediately. Remove the cylinder and label it properly with a defective cylinder tag. On the tag, indicate the nature of the defect and notify your supervisor. Leaking or defective cylinders should be stored in a designated, well-ventilated area outdoors away from possible ignition sources. The warning tag should be attached to the cylinder collar, making it visible to anyone who may not realize the cylinder is defective, thus preventing its use. Proper cylinder handling procedures must not be overlooked. Your safety and the safety of those around you depends on it.
Please stop the video here and turn to page 28 of the participant's manual to complete the quiz for Module 4.
All companies should have their own emergency procedures or plan, which should be updated and practiced on a regular basis. Emergency equipment such as a fire extinguisher must be available and easily seen and reached. Your employer must tell you how to deal with an emergency. You must know what to do in these situations. Propane is highly flammable, which means that it can catch on fire easily. Gas-air mixtures are highly flammable and explosive when exposed to heat, flames, and oxidizers such as peroxides. Leaking connectors are the most common cause of propane fires. In case of a fire, immediately call the emergency response team. Vacate all personnel from the area. Only professional firefighters have the proper equipment and knowledge to handle the situation safely. Small liquid propane gas fires can be put out with dry powder fire extinguishers, provided that the supply can be turned off. If you are unable to cut off the supply of gas, allow it to burn. Take all necessary steps to avoid the buildup of vapors in a confined area. In the event that you come upon a person who seems to have been overcome by propane fumes, first, assess the situation to ensure your own safety. Remember, if you are overcome yourself, you cannot help someone else. Notify other personnel about the situation and send for help. If the person has been affected by propane fumes, take them immediately to a source of fresh air and arrange for first aid. If propane gets into your eyes, gently wipe or brush away the excess chemical immediately. Flush the affected eye with lukewarm, gently flowing water for at least 20 minutes while holding the eyelid open. As discussed earlier, vaporizing propane liquid has an extreme chilling effect and will freeze anything it comes in contact with. When contacting skin, it can cause severe frostbite damage. Effects of contact can result in the need for amputation of the affected body part. For all serious cases, keep the affected area warm and covered with lukewarm water if possible, and obtain medical attention immediately. In some cases, exposure may cause material to stick to the skin. Don't try to pull off the material that is stuck to the skin. Flush the affected area with lukewarm, gently running water for at least 20 minutes, and then seek medical attention. All internal combustion engines produce some level of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is also odorless, colorless, and tasteless. It is known as the silent killer. In order to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning, the proper maintenance of the vehicle is extremely important. Running a vehicle that is not maintained properly, or running a vehicle in a poorly ventilated space, can cause carbon monoxide poisoning, which is a serious health hazard. Do not keep the truck running when it is not being used, and never rev the engine unnecessarily.
Please stop the video here and turn to page 33 of the participant's manual to complete the quiz for Module 5.
Now that you've watched this video and answered the quiz at the end of each module, study your participant's manual, as it will help you get a thorough understanding of proper propane handling procedures. Once you've done this, you will be required to complete the written portion of the evaluation. The questions on the knowledge verification form are based on information that you have learned from viewing the video and studying the manual. After you've completed the knowledge verification form, your company authorized evaluator will ask you to perform a hands-on propane cylinder exchange. In order for you to receive your accredited record of training, remember to follow the procedure exactly as outlined in the 19 steps shown on the practical evaluation checklist in the participant's manual. Once you've successfully demonstrated your knowledge of proper propane handling procedures to the satisfaction of the evaluator, He or she will then be able to issue the record of training to you. To help prepare you, a practical hands-on assessment demonstration will now be shown. Step 1. Wear eye protection and approved gloves. Step 2. Eliminate all sources of ignition. Step 3. Close the liquid service valve on the cylinder. Step 4. Run the engine until it stops. This ensures that the connection hose is empty. Step 5. Shut off the engine. Step 6. Open the connecting coupler. Do not use metal tools and be aware of potential leaks from the valve. Step 7. Disconnect the hose. Step 8. Disconnect the hold-down straps. Step 9. Remove the empty cylinder. Store it properly in an upright position. Step 10. Select and inspect a new cylinder. Check the certification date and check the O-ring. Step 11. Ensure that the liquid service valve is in a fully closed position. Step 12. Place the full cylinder in the proper position. The safety relief valve must be at the top, in the 12 o'clock position. Step 13. Connect the hold-down straps. Step 14. Tighten the connecting coupler. Hand tighten only. Use approved personal protective equipment. Step 15. Open the liquid service valve on the cylinder slowly and check for any leaks. Use an approved leak-detecting solution. Step 16. Finish opening the valve fully. Step 17. Check that the hose is turned inward. Step 18. Secure the hose downward. And finally, Step 19. Ensure that the cylinder is secure. Propane is one of the cleanest, most efficient, and safe forms of fuel used in industry today. However, like all other fuels, propane must be handled with care and caution. Remember, propane cylinder handling is your responsibility. We hope that you found this video helpful in familiarizing you with the procedures involved in handling and exchanging propane cylinders safely. You now have knowledge of the basic properties of liquefied petroleum gas, the importance of proper cylinder storage and handling, as well as the functions of the various components of a propane cylinder. Make sure that you always perform cylinder inspections regularly and that you practice safe procedures when removing and installing propane cylinders. And finally, be sure that you know all the emergency procedures that apply in your workplace. Remember, your personal safety and the safety of those around you depends on it.